Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. Today, we're talking about the most fundamental opportunities that dealers have today and how important they are. And more importantly, how is technology automating how we handle phone calls, process phone calls, and just better serve our customers who use the phone. And who better to have this discussion than the team at CarWars and Curtis Batzel. He's the director of consulting. We're going to have an updated, fresh conversation on what CarWars is doing to help dealers solve sales and service bottlenecks. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Curtis, let's start with the fundamentals. Every dealer knows that their number one channel by which consumers reach out to them overall in the dealership when you combine sales and service is the phone. And yet here we are 2024 and we're still having some challenges in filling gaps in staffing, training, customer service. And well, CarWars and Cassie at many of our shows have really stepped forward to add a little humor, but really the reality is on how important it is for phone training, for consistent answering. So let's start with the basics. Why is it still a challenge for dealers to handle the phones at the highest level of customer satisfaction?
It's a great question, and the answer to that changes depending on a lot of different factors. But I think the most overarching story even that I hear when I'm out and talking to dealers is, we've got a fresh crop of agents, that kind of base level, agent level persona that didn't work in a dealership prior to COVID, and their first impression and their first kind of their training happened during COVID when things were very different regarding the sales process and a lot of the different aspects of what customers typically expect to experience when interacting with the dealership on the phone. So we have this huge crop of newer, kind of younger talent in the space that did not cut their teeth having to be in the kind of super competitive economy that was present pre-COVID. So what that has produced, you hear the old adage, like hard times produce whatever, that whole, and then easy times produce soft people or whatever, soft men. So that we're kind of seeing that happen right now, where there wasn't a lot of need to provide a distinctive and a distinctive customer experience on the phone to separate yourself from the competition. And as a result, dealers are looking up now when the competition has ratcheted up quite a few levels, and they're saying, man, these guys don't know how to convert these leads that are coming in. And they're having to do a lot of different things. And a lot of times that means to give precedent in terms of routing on who can handle those. And that, that phone team is a coveted position, which is great. But even the people that wind up on that team are not always the people that, I talk to a lot of sales managers that are like, man, I would have done so good in this environment. But there's a lot of training and coaching that has to go on for that newer crop of talent to really understand what it means to be successful, especially on the phone.
Well, let's set the context, because you mentioned it about, COVID, post-COVID, but we're in a unique period right now. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I was talking to members of our CXO network. These are larger dealer groups, and everyone's saying the same thing. Man, the competition is really tough right now. Dealers are really looking to buy cars. Mm-hmm. And someone made the comment, hey, this is the 4-year life cycle. So 4 years ago, we weren't selling a lot of cars. 4 years ago, we weren't leasing a lot of cars. And here's this natural gap, right, of people who, maybe sell their cars every 3 or 4 years. Well, guess what? This was the lean and mean time where car prices were very high or availability was very scarce. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing on the phone with our large dealer groups is, Brian, we're working really hard to acquire cars, and advertising costs are going up. People are spending more. And you said it right. It's like more than ever in this very challenging environment, we need to upgrade our phone handling skills. And, Cassie has really done a good job, and the CarWars team of showing dealers a better way for training with the CRISP method of phone training. And that has proven over and over again to be a very effective way to train callers. But now we're hearing AI role play. We're hearing AI phone assistant. We're hearing about AI reviewing call transcripts and providing insights on what could be better. So, in addition to your quality phone training program that you've put tens of thousands of people through, how are you looking at this new competitive landscape with AI intermixed? Can you give me maybe one example? We'll cover some more, but what's one example you're most excited about on how AI is helping CarWars customers in a very competitive marketplace?
Absolutely. Yeah. The possibilities are almost limitless, but, kind of boots on the ground tangibly right now. Probably my favorite feature, we have, again, we're recording and reviewing 100% of our customers' calls. So we've got the raw data there. It's just about how we use it. And so we've been able to build a model that through generative AI can produce coaching feedback on any sales opportunity call that comes into a dealership. And one of the things I like about it is it's on demand. So we're not generating it automatically and just hoping it sits there, but it's a button that an agent or manager has to click on, and then it analyzes the transcript. We've trained that large language model in our CRISP methodology. It goes through the same training that we put agents through, but then gives the ability to actually give pointers and feedback, even referencing a lot of the same concepts and tactics that are trained on in the material we give through the training. So it kind of brings that full circle approach with a kind of a feedback loop to say, we're giving you the information up front, then we're tracking your performance within those trackable metrics, but then we're also giving you feedback on where you can improve and the opportunities that you have in front of you to do better on the phone. So yeah, generative AI is and again, I feel like we're kind of scratching the tip of the iceberg in a lot of ways, but that's one of the easy home runs that is just available right now today. And so we've packaged that in that training platform. They kind of come together, they're not nickel and dime or anything. It's like that's a piece of it because of how important we know it is. And hopefully how helpful it is for managers to have that kind of done for them.
Yeah, I think, listen, there are people that dealers pay for, and it's not inexpensive to fly into the dealership, to listen to phone calls, and to coach people. I think one of the areas where AI is really going to transform training is that I'm not saying on-site consultants will go away.
Sure.
But you can have a more productive use of the time if you have an agent listening to the AI coaching tips over and over again and learning. And then where they get stuck, that's a great place for a real human coach. But I do know at the beginning, there's so much that people are trying to learn, if they've been outside of automotive. And this is where I think the breakthroughs are, because otherwise in the past, right, you might have the BDC manager taking their time or the sales manager taking time coaching. So I think there's a lot of time savings that can be helped with training. Let's flip the script a little bit. We saw in the industry over the last 2 years specifically, the growth and interest in digital voice assistants to supplement live callers, right? Too many calls that are coming in for basics like, hey, I need an oil change, or hey, I heard you had a tire special. And, I know just talking with Cassie and the team at CarWars, you can work with any system, right? CarWars is very flexible. But what about your own development team? Do you see a day where you're going to be offering some automated voice attendant, digital voice assistant. What does that look like on your roadmap? Because to tell you the truth, we're not far away from NADA, right? It's a big shopping show. We have the Modern Retailing Conference coming up. And I think digital voice assistant, AI assisted sales process, service process, these are all going to be some of the topics that we're going to talk about. How would you respond to a dealer who's an existing CarWars customer and says, hey, I want to do more with AI? What's the roadmap look like?
Yeah, I think to put it a different way, we actually had several of our top dealer groups sort of come to us at a point last year and say, hey, why are you guys making us buy these assistants from some other companies that are a little bit newer in the game, and
Yep.
by no means is that they've done some great stuff and they were the first on the scene, which again, kudos to them. But the difference, and one of the things that makes AI the most powerful is that foundational data and the macro data that is necessary to make it truly intelligent. And so that's one of the just areas that we already have thousands and hundreds of thousands of calls labeled, and all of that stuff already exists for us. So we said, I guess you're right. You're asking the right questions. We should be able to help you with that. So we've been working on that. We actually announced the kind of version 1 at last NADA. We've got some dealerships actively using it. A small plug, the very first group that we did some tests on, we just put it in after hours at one store in the group.
Okay.
They had such a great experience with it that they said, okay, we want it taken every appointment call for on service. And then we actually just last week talked to them and they're like, we want it in every store now. So it's going really well. One of the distinctives we have kind of on the fixed op side is that we've opted to integrate directly with the DMS rather than either through a scheduler or no integration. So we're pulling a lot more data, and we're able to plug in a lot more data like around opcodes and the actual work that needs to be done through the customer discussion that we're really excited about, and then able to build on the other side of that into reporting on the performance of that AI assistant. Because I think one of the incredibly important things, whether it's through with phones or anything, is the ability to track the performance of those jobs and processes you're trying to replace with AI, and how important it is to keep a pulse on that and not just say, well, this is what we're doing now, and going from there.
Well, you mentioned integration, so I'd like to talk about that. CarWars has always had a robust API. You've always been a leader in trying to do custom reporting and integrations. Any new partnerships, tech partnerships, integration partnerships that are, of interest to dealers? I know that, for example, just as you were mentioning this rich data you're getting from your scoring algorithms using AI, I know dealers are talking about getting that data into CDPs or other data warehouses to update customer intent and records. Tell me anything of interest that dealers should know about within the integration side of the business.
Sure. There's a lot going on at any given point, but especially right now. And so CDPs are one that we're pretty active in kind of entering into those discussions, because obviously call data is super valuable there as well. But in terms of like what is sort of available today that we're excited about, I'm headed to California next week to work with some of our first dealerships that are using Reynolds and Reynolds, and we have a direct integration built with their Focus CRM, which we've never had integration, and neither has anyone else, I think, outside the Reynolds organization. So it's really exciting that they've finally kind of started opening up for integration partners. So that's fun. Just good old fashioned call tracking integration with a new CRM. And another one that's, I think, almost as important, again, as we sort of look ahead and we say, what is the best experience that dealerships can provide to their customers, is by having a little bit more integration. And even if it's not the same company, that the partners, the vendors that you use work well together, and is simply with phone systems. A lot of dealers are now looking at the availability of some of the more cloud-based and more nimble phone systems, which we obviously support, and we are not a phone system. So we have partnered with GoToConnect. We've evaluated.
Yeah, that's right. I heard about that. And tell me a little bit about that, because again, you mentioned you're not a phone system, which is really important.
Yeah,
And that means, hey, if a dealer has a phone system, you can work as an overlay,
right.
an integration point. But talk about the call to connect.
So a couple of the key kind of differences between a direct integration with the phone system and then a more traditional like tracking line placement
Mm-hmm.
approach is that we get to pull that call audio from the API backend of the phone system. So we're not limited any longer to, for example, I talk to dealers still today that struggle with getting the numbers they place on Google to stick. They whether
Yes.
it's an OEM, brand ambassador or whatever that goes in and changes it, like that's a challenge that a lot of our dealers face, and then just the ever changing just nature of advertising in general makes it really hard. You have to really be on your toes to think, do I have a tracking line on this ad and this ad and this ad? And so that is kind of eliminated. Another type of call that I get all the time is, hey, I'm looking for this specific call and I can't find it in CarWars. And after doing research, we say, well, that customer called you on a number we're not tracking today. So it eliminates all of that.
Wow.
But then one of the things we've done that I'm really excited about, and I get a little nerdy about phones, and I admit that, but it's just we take a very serious approach, whether it's CRMs or phone systems or GA4, like to really know the platforms that we're integrating with. And so we take a consultative approach. Again, we've been doing this for so long, we know what some of the best practices are, even when it comes to configuring your phone system and creating dial plans and all that stuff. And so being able to actually understand the way the phone system works and even say like, hey, I can go in and fix this for you is something that's really fun. That historically we've had to say, hey, can you get us on with your IT provider or persona within the group? Whereas now we can say, hey, this is a legitimate area. Because of our partnership, we can access some of the elements and provide some actual consulting and assistance on that side as well. Because one of the challenges that a dealership faces when engaging with a cloud-based phone system is that a lot of times they don't have a ton of just like very proactive support. A lot of that
Correct.
is
It's more of a trouble ticket and it's being handled
self-serve.
overseas.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we
And I
kind of
love
are
the
able to bridge
fact,
that gap.
and I love the fact you're thinking about these cloud telephony systems because you're absolutely right. Dealers don't know what phone numbers they have. And if you could patch into the phone system API, that means you could see every phone call, right? I mean, that's a huge difference. I will tell you that this past year has been an eye opener for me as I've been working on some telephony projects. And the simple question is, how many outbound lines do you have? Like dealers are like, oh, I don't know, and I mean, what do you mean you don't know? It's like, well, we just cut over from this system or we're on two different systems. And I said, but it's your number one channel by which people are calling. How do you know that you're not using numbers that no longer exist? And I would say that this is an area of consultation, as you mentioned, that is ripe, especially if we're going to start putting AI voice assistants, digital voice routing capabilities on lines, making sure that we're not missing opportunities to route those calls to the right people. One of the things that I've always appreciated with the analysis and reports that you've always had as part of CarWars is this commitment to helping people get better. And, I want to go back to that because right today, let me just say for the dealers who are watching, how would you rate your callers? How would you rate the people who are answering your calls? And so if somebody's following the CRIS system, they're relatively new, or maybe the general manager is like, I'm not happy with my calling. How long do you think it takes using the training, the disciplines, the modules, the feedback for people to get better? I want to get back to that because I think there's some general managers listening to this call that have said, I've really not focused on call training and it's expensive to fly people in every month to do call training. Set some expectations on that, Curtis.
I love that question. And I'll look at it from a couple of different angles. So yeah, again, we've got just a ton of data available to look at those kinds of things. And one of the things that we look at very closely in our very simple kind of methodology of how we review calls is how many firm appointments get set per sales opportunity on the phone. And the average sort of baseline across all the dealerships we categorize calls for is 31%. It's not very high, but we are very picky. We listen for that firm date and time. So if it's a soft yes, we actually exclude it from that math because we believe in that much in how much emphasis a dealership should be placing on their agents booking a specific date and time. So 31% is average. Our top dealers that we engage with are at 45%. So you already see that
50% increase.
Exactly. And now the time it takes, I would say that we can make that happen in a 3-month time period. If a dealer is bought into actually holding their team accountable to go through the platform, the training, the initial training, because we have a certification step that gets a lot of those concepts out, makes them familiar with the nomenclature we use and the metrics we're tracking, and then another couple months, that's only a 6-hour give or take endeavor, and then it's like all about that feedback loop that I described earlier. And we also do take a little bit of a hands-on approach from a just product usage perspective. We want it to be self-driven, self-serve, but we also want you to know that we have a person on the other side, on the vendor side, that is watching the progress and making sure we're hitting some of those benchmarks and sending some recommendations.
Kind of like a performance manager.
Right. It's just, to me, there's, in the world of software, there's a lot of varying approaches, and we even talked about it with cloud phone systems. Sometimes that customer approach is very much, we've made our system as easy as we can. You got to figure it out. We take a little bit more of an integrated approach to where we say, we want to be talking with you about this and helping you along the way. And even sometimes meeting with your agents one-on-one, if that's what it takes to see that improvement.
Well, as I'm thinking about our upcoming conference, the Modern Retailing Conference in Palm Beach, that's November 17, 18, 19. One of the core things that if I look back on all our conferences, dealers are laser focused on efficiency. Dealers are laser focused today in selling more cars or buying more cars. And behind all of that is great phone skills, even though they're not saying that. Meaning you can create a used car buying center because you need a new supply, a fresh supply, other than the auction. But it still comes, somebody has to be trained how to encourage someone to come in, show their car, or to walk through a process on the phone. Dealers want more people to come in for service, but how you handle those opportunities. And I remember very, very much, Cassie, really emphasizing, just like you did, about this firm set appointment. And when we've done mystery calls in front of 300, 400 people, it's amazing how many people are cringing, just literally cringing, like, oh my God, he's letting them get off the phone without, it's amazing. And I want to encourage all the dealers here who may be feeling a little pressure about hitting your numbers, feeling pressure about supply, looking for new ways of generating revenue. Listen, at the conference, you're going to see some amazing new ways to generate more leads, more opportunities. But at the end of that discussion is often a phone call. At the end of that marketing strategy, there's a phone call. At the end of that CDP investment, likely a phone call. And I think that maybe dealers who are thinking about how to retool for next year, if they don't have a clear training program, a sustainable training program, they don't have the benefit of AI infused coaching, maybe this is the time to kind of set things up for success in 2025, especially if you're saying in 90 days, dealers can see a massive transformation? Do you align with that coaching piece, no matter what tech you put in, what number new sales process, what new marketing strategy, the end result, most of the time is the consumer's going to talk to you.
It's inevitable. I actually, when I was kind of looking at a lot of data, I can't remember who did the research. I could pull it up, but I saw somewhere that about 61% of shoppers who do a search for a car do call a dealership during that buying journey. So yeah, that internet lead is you're always going to have more of them, and they're great. But that phone lead, that is still an important step, and it's still a very common step in that buying journey. And it's an opportunity for that customer to scratch you off the list. If their experience is not what they are looking for, and they don't feel like they're going to be well taken care of once they finally do talk to that human on the other side of the phone, then they're going to go somewhere else. It's plain and simple, and it's so important to take it seriously.
Yeah, and one thing I will tell you that data for data's sake is meaningless. It's applied data that really is transformative for a dealership. And I will tell you that, recently purchased a car, which means I did some online shopping. And the thing that frustrates me the most is when I fill out a form and provide a lot of information and the person calls me back and never read it. And I just want to encourage all dealers that part of your training process has to be skills assessment, that people know how to use the tools, how to look at the notes or to add notes, because nothing is more painful than me. And it's a little thing, but like your credit card company, please put in your 12-digit or 15-digit credit card. And then it's like, hi, who am I speaking with? Now they should know because I just gave the credit card and all the PIN and everything. It's like, okay, can I have your credit card number? And I'm like, what just happened there? But it's happening the same thing on a trade. Oh, by the way, what car did you want to trade in? It's like, I just put in all that information. Oh, could you give it to me again? And when somebody says, would you just give it to me again? It's really saying your time was wasted. There's better ways of saying it. It's like, oh, we're having a problem with our systems and I can't see that information right now. I apologize for that. Would you mind giving it to me one more time?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying for the dealers here, keep in mind that whether it's a CRM, eventually a CDP integrated with a CRM, or whatever tools that you have, nothing can screw up that initial first impression if the consumer feels all their time online was wasted. Curtis, if a dealer wanted to see the latest dashboards, KPIs, and measurement tools, also the training, the CRISP training platform and certification, what's the best place and process for them to get an updated demo?
Yeah, I think the place they should start if they're already at that point and looking for that would be CarWars.com. Just like Star Wars, but with cars, CarWars.com.
Okay.
That's going to be the most comprehensive place. But man, I'm like a fan of some sort, because our social media team is also doing a really good job lately of consistently putting out content that is helpful. It's not salesy. It's dealer interviews, it's data studies. So I would also say on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, like those are, if you're like, I'm not sure if I want to do a full demo yet and I don't want to fill out my information, just give us a follow. I promise you'll actually get some helpful information, even if you never do a demo with us. So either one of those places would be a good place to start. And if you have questions and you can't find us there, or if that's not good enough, email me, curtis@carwars.com. I like talking to dealers and helping dealers.
Man, that's the easiest email ever.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind general managers, marketing managers, dealers that the number one channel for conversion of all online marketing is the phone. And it's amazing that I would say 8 out of 10 dealers I look at in their analytics, they're not tying phones to campaigns, and CarWars supports that. CarWars supports the Automotive Standards Council specification. So with all of the other features, plus tying your marketing dollars into online phone calls is absolutely critical. And keep in mind that CarWars is going to be one of the tech leaders and speakers at the upcoming Modern Retailing Conference. And if you've never been to this conference before, this is the premier event where thought leaders come together, the owners of companies come together to really brainstorm what's the next step in making retailing more profitable for the dealer, more enjoyable for the customer, and a great place for people to work. So the modernretailingconference.com is exactly where you're going to get your tickets. I'm just going to remind the dealers that it sells out every year. The hotel block sells out every year. You need to book your tickets right away. And for Allied Industry, those tickets close on September 30th. After September 30th, only dealer tickets are sold. So everyone needs to plan to get out to Palm Beach, Florida. It's at the beautiful O Hotel in Palm Beach, November 17, 18, and 19. And you will be blown away with the excellence of content, the excellence in attendees, and well, the conversations that will develop. And I hope you'll make some time to get over to the CarWars booth and see what's going on with the platform. Curtis, think of one dealer that really transformed their business and may have said something, measured something, put some dollars out on the table on how the platform has transformed. Can you think of something that could encourage dealers listening today to pick up that phone, send Curtis at carwars.com, or just go to carwars.com? What story would you share?
So I'm gonna use one of the things you mentioned kind of on the front end of what you just talked about, and that is sort of the importance of integrating phone lead data, both I don't know what direction would be within your marketing analytics platform, but also making sure that that gets properly sourced in your CRM so you can get the best kind of ROI returns. I've listened to an interview we did with a dealer recently who made the decision to not use the kind of basic integration with the CRM, which just kind of has us put the phone calls in like a report that they can look at, and then manually log the leads. And he said, I don't want that. I'm going old school and sending it to a phone leads address because I want a lead created for every phone call. And he's like, yeah, there's some cleanup that I have to do, but I'd rather remove a few leads than sit there going to sleep every night and be worried that we didn't log every lead and we're not following up with our processes. And so when he made that switch to automate that lead creation process through the integration of CarWars into CRM, he saw an increase in 60% of phone leads logged overnight.
Wow.
And then the trickle, phone leads, again, we've already established this, they convert at a higher rate anyway. So those appointments are almost, they about double the appointments come out of phone leads versus internet leads. And so it just trickles down, and the impact that a simple thing like that can make, which is, I'm actually tired of trying to trust my team to log every lead. I'm going to take advantage of some of the automation that exists because of the integrations between a lot of the vendors I have. And take just tracking our leads seriously and yielding an incredible return right away.
Well, Curtis, I'm gonna add something to that story. For the dealers, the managers, the BDC directors listening to today's interview, here's what I found. Your pay plan influences compliance more than anything else. And here's what I found. In cultures, if your store culture really crushes salespeople for closing percentages, then if someone's on the phone, hey, I'm kind of interested, and I need some information, they're not putting that lead in. They're not logging that lead because they're like, that person wasn't serious. Yet when we look at like urban science defection reports, that person called, that was in their CRM, but they're not putting it in. So be very careful. That's such a good word of advice, Curtis. Be careful what you emphasize. Paying for appointments, you can get a lot of bogus appointments. Crushing people's livelihood on closing percentages. Hey, they're only going to be put in the best of the best, and everything else is going to be like when they walk in, I'll put that lead in. So It's great to be able to use technology to find these gaps and even to identify the hidden behaviors that were unintended consequences of pay plans. For all the dealers and industry folks who are listening to today's interview, I hope you got something to take back. More importantly, really refocus on how would you grade your phone skills today? And is it time to invest in a platform that can elevate those phone skills to help you sell more cars in the digital age? As I mentioned, this interview is part of a Road to the Modern Retailing Conference. There are dozens of interviews, so just search for the Brian Pash podcast and you'll be able to listen to all the speakers and leaders that will be there. Start making some appointments, start making some demos so you can make the most of your time in Palm Beach on November 17th, 18th, 19th. Curtis, thank you. And for everyone listening in, thank you so much for supporting this podcast. And we hope to see you on another podcast interview in the days to come. Until then, hope to see you in November in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida. Thanks for listening in.